we've gone through the channel rack, and so far this has been all fine and good for working with samples that are already in here, but we can actually go in to see a bit more, like add in your own samples or things like that. And what we do for this is go over to the browser on the left side, and in here we have a few different divisions. We have all, we have current project browsing, and also plugins. But we'll jump over to all and go into packs, and we'll see samples. So starting with just drums, we can click on here, click around to preview these different samples available, and just click and drag to put a new channel, which you'll note is not on a mixer track. And what I like to do here is just double click and hold, and then I can drag it onto a mixer track so I can see which one it's going on. And normally things would be laid out a little bit more and I would keep things labeled, but now that new sample is all laid out on a mixer track and can be mixed or handled however, and it has all of its own channel settings, individual from everything else, panning, same situation as all the others. But it's really all that simple to add samples from the allotted packs. But another thing you can note is that these are just files that you would have on your computer. So if you right click in here, you could open it and it will open up just an Explorer browser, and you could browse through the samples as they are laid out and play them on your computer. You could also add things in here if you wanted to. So right now, if I wanted to just make a new folder as an example here, we'll just call it new folder. And then I go over here and refresh the browser. There we have a new folder. And right now there's nothing in it, but we could add samples in however we want to do that and then get through that, open it up and work with it just like you would with any other file or folder in Windows or Mac. And that actually leads to a bit more customization we can do later. In the file settings, you can add in folders to be able to be browsable in your browser. So if you click on here, on my desktop, I made an example directory that we could just put in here. Currently, again, it doesn't have anything in it, but I have this example directory now in my browser. So if I dump anything into that folder, I could browse it in the FL browser, samples, anything like that. And I could rename it something other than what the actual folder is called. Refresh the browser again, and then we have that listed. So that is helpful. We can clear it out if we don't want it anymore. And then it's gone. But the browser is pretty helpful for finding samples and even plugins, which in order to get to, we'll jump over to the plugins tab here. And you'll note we have effects and generators. Effects we'll work with in the mixer, and generators are going to be our synthesizers and things like that. Basically the same as in the browser, and you can actually access this as well right here, but the tab narrows it down to just that. So if you want to drag in some sort of synthesizer, for instance, you can just find it in here like you would a sample, drag it onto the channel rack, and then we have whatever instrument, whatever synthesizer that you happened to add in. And you can hit stop a couple of times to cut off any of the hanging notes. I pressed it on my controller there a second ago. And then if you want to collapse everything, just hit this arrow and it'll collapse back up to the root. Another way to add in synthesizers in a similar manner, you just say insert, right click and insert on a channel, and then you will get those same lists as you would have on the browser, but instead in a list display here. So if we wanted to add the same thing, a 3x OSC, we have a new one inserted above whatever we right clicked on. To do the same thing, you can also hit this plus sign, same list pops up, and there you go, another one pops in, this time at the bottom. So it's just a matter of wherever you want to insert all of these plugins, whatever they may be. Hit F12 to close out. And if you want to go a little bit more visual, you can use the plugin picker. So you can click here on the top, or you can also hit F8 to open it. This is, again, the same categorization, just a bit more visual of a display. You can find something. Right now we're in effects on this side. Over here we have synths. Let's grab this one, drag it onto the channel rack. And again, we have a channel for this instrument. You can also right click on the plus sign at the bottom to open up the plugin picker, and that'll just narrow down to the generators. You can also click on the categories down here to open them in the browser. So what you can kind of gather here is that everything's pretty well connected. It's all just a list of directories and how you can access them to drag onto your channel rack to be able to work with in the mixer, sending it to different places there, or take a look at in the piano roll, which we'll get into shortly. But for the most part, it is just a matter of keeping everything in order and having it easily, readily available. Not to mention, if you do want to add third-party plugins, you'll want to go to Options and Manage Plugins and make sure that it's installed into one of the VST directories, and then you'll find more plugins and it will scan, and then you'll pop up for new plugins in this installed directory under Effects and Generators, and you'll also have Effects and Generators here. Anything new that it scans will be available here, and right now, since it's my first scan on this install, I have all of the plugins here, but you can click and drag to add channels. Collapse back down, open up wherever you want to save it. This is actually a generator, and I'm not going to really save anything right now, but if I wanted to, I could open this channel, say add to plugin database, flag as favorite, and then whatever directory I have open will be the subcategory that my plugin will be added to for opening. And now that dashboard, which is already somewhere else in here, will be available under that list in the tree, whether it's here, in the plus sign, or in the plugin picker. So managing everything here and adding in what you want is nothing too crazy. Now, I know that we've kind of thrown a lot at you, starting with all of these different ways the channel rack works, and we dug a little deeper than what you'd actually be using necessarily on a regular basis. But don't let anything be too overwhelming, because it all makes sense when it fits together. And we'll start piecing everything in place in the next video once we get with the piano roll. So I will see you then.